start to put tension on my string drawback, I was like, okay, I'm gonna swing.
It's him. You can look at the horns when he's dead. I'm in the zone. Let the arrow go is perfect.
When they lose their front shoulders, that's how you know it's smoking.
Went about 5-10 more yards. He probably went 20 yards total. Stepped over, tried to get back up. And I saw him pull up.
We rushed 40 years rods that night. We got like 156 and something like that. And then the next day we came out to 163 even.
You're listening to the White Cat Outdoors podcast.
I'm doing a lot more than four.
More than four.
What's up, guys? This is episode 4 of the White Cat Outdoors podcast.
Plus 100.
Plus 100. 104. Welcome. And this will be the last episode before Christmas, so Merry Christmas to everybody.
Merry Chrysler.
Merry Chrysler. Tom, do you have anything to say?
I'm just trying to count. No, it ain't.
What?
Yeah.
We're
Because
gonna
next
record
week,
one next
we're going to
week.
record
Okay.
one next week, but it'll launch on the 26th.
The day after. Okay, yeah. So Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry St. Grimmins.
I was starting to wonder, it's like maybe Tom's not in the holiday spirit.
No, definitely big time holiday spirit guy. I was just.
You afraid to say Merry Christmas?
No, I was just trying to in my head think, how can we be that close? But
Yeah,
we are.
right around the corner.
Math checks out.
Yeah, it does. And Deer Camp series is continuing.
Yeah. We somebody in the room here, we could play a little game of Guess Who.
Somebody that hasn't got a deer yet this year.
Well, that rules out you, Tom, because you've been shooting big bucks left and right.
And that would also, I'd have to put my face down because I've also killed deer this year.
That only leaves me. So
Let's talk about it.
yeah, I'll tell you the whole story if you guys want to hear it.
All right, start at October 1st. I don't want to miss anything.
Okay. I guess the story would start with all the logging that I've talked about. How
Yeah, we've kind of briefly talked about it, but why don't you kind of lay out that, to just in case somebody's jumping in,
Yeah.
Fresh listener, kind of lay out that piece of property you're hunting.
yeah. So when you first get like the big chunk of like the front half of the property is just a big field. I want to say it's like 26 acres of fields, and there's like it's basically 3 fields with a couple little hedgerows cutting them apart, but it's one field essentially. And it was last year, I think, they started logging, and they are still logging. It's
Like actively still in there right now?
actively cutting
Okay.
every day. So they have cut every tree above like 4 inches in diameter. Diameter. There's like a couple beeches left up in there that are, enough to put a stand in. Couple of hemlocks here and there, but for the most part, it's leveled. There's nothing left of this property, and it's just under 200 acres, the whole piece. So you got 25-ish acres of field, and then the rest was wooded and now is just a mess of tops. So I was interested to hunt it this year, and I've always hunted it heavily, but I wanted to spend a lot more time in it this year just because I figured it would be such a learning curve because of how much the woods has changed. They're obviously going to use it differently, and they definitely have. I didn't learn quite as much as I wanted to this year, but I think part of that is because they are still actively logging, so it hasn't gotten them really onto their normal pattern, because during the day they can't do what they want to do because they're logging in certain chunks of the property. So they aren't using it quite the way I think they're going to in the future once they're 100% done. But it definitely made for a very interesting season hunting that property. And how I would start that property in the early season is hunting the fields, and it's the biggest field is just a big bean field every year, and I spent no time on that this year in early archery.
And why is that?
I wanted to learn more about how they were going to be using the tops. I knew that they would, and honestly, I sat in the field twice in early archery, and normally,
So your story's not adding up.
I said I hardly, and then
Okay.
I reiterated it with an actual number. I think it was twice that I sat the field in early archery. And normally, in past years, when I would sit the field in the first week and a half, 2 weeks of the season, I would see 40 deer a night. They would just bombard that field.
Yeah, your Snapchat would usually blow up with, or our Snapchat would just blow up with pictures of deer.
Yeah, so I wanted to learn more about what was going on deeper in the property, but I still wanted to keep a little bit of an eye on the fields and see if they were still using the field the same way. And the couple times that I did sit on it, the one time I didn't see a single deer, and the other time I think I saw 2 does. Like, it was dead.
Yeah.
Completely dead. So I focused more of my energy back in the woods more, and then they had actually taken a break from logging in the summer, which made no sense to me, and they took the sawmill out, and it looked like,
I remember, you were all excited, like, oh, sweet, they're done.
yeah, and that's what I thought, that they were done logging, and I was like, okay, I'm really gonna put the time in and learn this property now. And like right as archery started, they brought the mill back in, set it up, and started logging another piece of the property that I was really hoping they were going to leave, because it would have made just the perfect transition area between all of those tops and the fields, and it would have been a dream spot. But like I said, right before archery started, they moved back in and started cutting everything that was left, and that
Makes it tough changing, we scouted that property this summer with you, and it makes it tough when the property is, constantly changing drastically. I mean, how the hell do you get a bead on a deer and follow it?
Yeah, exactly. And if it does go through a drastic change, and then it's done, you can then start to learn. But when it is actively changing every day,
loggers in there every single day, it's so hard to predict what's going to happen.
Yeah, and even though it is a big chunk of properties, and they'll use the portions of the property that aren't being logged, they're not doing everything that they would do if there was no pressure in the area. So it did stifle me a little bit, and I was pretty bummed out for archery. I figured it would still be fine for rifle, and I had a good plan for rifle season coming up, that a way I was going to hunt that and make it really productive. But archery, after I sat in there a few times back in the tops, and I saw a deer every time I was back in there, it was always eventful, but I just never really honed in on any specific thing. And I think it was just mostly because of the pressure of the loggers. So it made for a difficult archery season for me. I was a little bit bummed out about that, but I spent some time on some other properties. It's not the only property that I have to hunt, so it's not like my season was shot at that point, so I had other options. But
you move into rifle season.
Yeah, I was mostly, after I kind of backed out of there, I just started to put a plan together for rifle season, because I know there's a lot of nice bucks in there, and the way that property used to be was like all just open hardwood. There was like an apple orchard way in the back and the fields, so we didn't really have anything that held the deer on it. There was no bedding area in it. It was all just basically a travel corridor, other than the apple trees and the fields. You had those 2 food sources, and everything else in the middle was just wide open timber. So we didn't keep deer there. You were catching them passing through, getting to the food here and there. So now that they've done this, it's 100% bedding. It's perfect habitat for them to just go in, lay down, lay low. And
well, I mean, if you didn't listen in the last few episodes, Uncle Frank killed a buck bedded in this area.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's just like you said, it's just a giant bedding area now.
Yeah, you have 150 acres of bedding now. So I was really excited to kind of work my way through it in rifle, and I still hunted a couple of times, but I wanted to move around the property a little bit, and one of my favorite types of hunting is like spotting and stalking, or like just mooching through the property real slow. And one thing that I do want to say about doing it that way, that I have noticed, and it kind of throws me off when I hunt that way, just like slowly picking my way through an area, is that a lot of times when you're doing that, you look up ahead and you're like, okay, I want to get up to that spot up there, and I'll slowly work my way up there, but I want to get to that spot and then see what's beyond and assess from there. But I found, because I've hunted a lot this way in the past, and I did it a lot this year. It really helps to not pick a destination in front of you, because you don't really hunt it at that point. You have a destination in mind, and your brain just takes over and is like, get to your destination.
Yeah, you're not nearly
hunting,
as focused on the hunt versus
you're not,
just getting to point B.
Yeah, you're not looking at tracks. You're not paying attention to the wind, the terrain, looking in all the different tops and stuff. You lose a lot of your hunt, and you could easily walk by animals that are in those tops that are perfectly comfortable letting you walk by because they feel safe.
While we're talking about doing the spotting and stalking, one thing I enjoy doing that in rifle season as well. With my bow, I don't, but muzzleloader in rifle season, it's a better, I think, is a more fun way to do it just when it's so cold. And one thing I've picked up on is when you're walking through the timber, like if you're doing this in timber, it
changes with what you're.
Yeah, but if you're walking through the timber, one thing I really enjoy doing is walking deer trails, and not necessarily for, it leading you to where they're at. Obviously, that's a benefit to it, but it's much quieter walking directly on a deer trail versus even 5 feet off of it.
Yeah.
Being that, if multiple deer are traveling on this same path, most of your sticks are going to be broken. The area's packed down. It's just going to be a much quieter walk. You're able to sneak through the woods a lot quieter just following those trails.
Yeah.
And it's like I said, it's two benefits. One, it obviously leads you to where deer are moving, but it's also much quieter.
Yeah, definitely. So, that was basically how I wanted to approach this property for rifle, is just every day just slowly pick my way through one chunk of the property. And, I'd get out of work, and one day I would go up and stay more towards the south side of the property, work 40 acres over there really well, just work it nice and slow. And then what I was doing pretty much every day is I would then work my way back out to the field and just check it real quick before dark. Last light, I'd make sure I get out there with 10 minutes of light left and see what's in the field.
Just glass and see, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And every night I was seeing does, and I was sending you Snapchats, and you kept telling me that I better shoot something to get on the podcast. So it was kind of funny just sending you videos all the time and never killing anything. But
Tom and I were starting to wonder if you even enjoyed hunting.
You asked me, you're like, are you even into deer hunting anymore? And
I was starting to get nervous.
Yeah, I had to prove you wrong. But so this particular day of the hunt, I didn't get to do my normal program of working my way up through the deeper part of the property and then back out to the field. My dad actually, because I get out of work at noon now, we're on our winter hours, and he called me like right before noon. He's like, hey, what are you doing after work? I was like, well, I plan on going hunting. He's like, oh, well, I kind of want to go look at this piece of property and a house, if you want to come check it out real quick. I was like, yeah, I'd be into that. That won't take long. We'll go look at that, and then I'll head out for the evening hunt. I'm guessing I would be out, get out in the woods 2:00. It wouldn't take that much time. Yeah.
Great time.
Perfect time, some say. So I'm like, yeah, well, let's do that. So I meet up with him right after I get out of work at noon. We head over to where we're going, and he's like, we walk into the house, and then my dad's one buddy's there. It's his family that like owns the house. And they're all sitting there talking, and they're like, okay, the freezer's down in the basement. And I'm like, what? And my dad's like, okay, let's go. I'm like, what are we doing here?
Son of a bitch.
So what he had done was lied to me about going to look at this property and roped me into moving a freezer. So we did look at the property, but...
Was it for sale?
Yeah.
No, not for sale.
Not for sale.
Just went to look at it.
Just figured I'd show it to you, just for fun. But, so yeah, he has me moving this freezer, so I'm like, you son of a bitch. So we finally get that done, and it's way later than 2:00. And I'm like, well, there's no way I'm going to have time to do anything back up in the tops. I don't want to sneak up into there. I'll just climb up in a stand in the field and sit the last, hour and a half of the evening. It wasn't even an hour and a half. It was like an hour. So get set up, and I'm hanging out. And the wind was perfect for where I was expecting these deer to come from, because they typically come out in roughly the same spot in this field every time. So I set up on that with the wind in my favor, and there's a deer. It's real nice, Tom. New phone. You think you can do whatever you want with it.
Mr. Hollywood over there.
So a deer comes out in the opposite direction of where I was expecting these deer to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't overly worried about it. It was kind of far away, and it wasn't something that I was like, okay, I'm going to shoot this right away. I was like, I'm kind of just going to hang out and see what else is going to come out into the field. There's still plenty of light left. I was just going to feel it out. So sitting there, and then I see some deer starting to work up to the edge of the field. They're still back in the woods a little bit. So I didn't have any shot opportunities, but stuff's starting to happen. Things are moving into the field a little bit more readily now. And right as this starts to happen, wouldn't you know it, that other doe catches my wind, starts blowing.
That's one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
'Cause it means I'm about to shoot a doe.
Exactly. And that's what happened. I was like, well, you just punched your last ticket. So she's blowing, and I whip around, throw the gun up on her, and give her the beans. And she takes off, goes about 50 yards down into the woods, didn't go far at all.
So you didn't see her go down?
No, I didn't see her go down, but we had a little bit of snow on the ground that day. And I sent Tom a Snapchat actually, I think I sent it to you. You just didn't open it until like 6 days later or something. But
that's probably hunting.
Yeah, I doubt it.
I know how you hunt.
Hunts on his phone all day. Right.
Continue your story.
So I sent Tom a Snapchat, and there's 3 feet wide of blood. Just
oh yeah, you did send me that one.
Yeah,
I think I did wait till after dark to open it though.
Yeah, so it was easy track job.
I was hunting behind the house that night.
Were you?
No.
Yeah.
I think you were in Climber.
Climber.
Oh,
we both remember.
Gilgamesh. Now I'm remembering correctly.
So I go down in the field, or out of the field, and find her piled up right there. And it was actually 1 week ago, because we had a podcast that night. I was like, well, I got to hurry up and get back to the house because it's getting dark.
I was in Climber. I remember all of this now.
Yeah, because you didn't tell me that we were podcasting
I
later.
told Tom, thought Tom would tell you.
Yeah, he must have got lost in the mail. So I get down to this deer, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to waste the 5 minutes gutting it. I'm just going to
quarter it and take it out.
Yeah, exactly. So I just drag it up to the field, which I learned this little trick 2 days before that. I was just scrolling through Facebook.
It's a nice trick.
It's
this is a new one for me.
Yeah, Tom saw it because I gutted it at the house. That's the next part of the story. But so a couple days prior to this hunt, I was just scrolling through Facebook, and I saw this video. This guy's holding a doe, and they're a pain in the ass to drag. They don't have antlers to hang on to. If you don't have a rope, it's just grab a leg, and their head's flopping all over the place. Mm-hmm. It's annoying. So what this guy did was he sliced through the skin between the bone
where
and
you would hang it from the gambrel,
the Achilles. Yeah.
Okay.
And then
the same spot that you're cutting through anyway to hang it on a gambrel.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So cut through there, and then he shoved the other leg, like the hoof, through the Achilles of the other leg, so it made like a little crossbar. Because the joints right there, it bends perfectly, and it makes a perfect bar to drag a doe. And I was like, as soon as I shot the doe, I was like, I'm trying that right now, and it was real slick. It couldn't have worked better. I was very happy. So whoever that guy is, 10 out of 10 on the idea. Absolutely loved it. So anyway, onward. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna get out of here, go do the podcast, and so I get up into the field after I drag it out of the woods, and I see something out in the field. I'm like, what's going on out there? So I start walking up, and I can't really tell because it's kind of dark at this point. It's blending in with the trees, and getting closer and closer and closer, and finally I'm like, oh, there's a coyote there. And what I didn't know is my dad had a couple of coyote sets.
Like, man, typically coyotes take off when you see them.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, wait a minute. There's a pretty big catch circle right there. It's almost like he's in a trap. So I called my dad. I was like, hey, you caught a coyote. He's like, oh, well, that's cool. Well, and he was on his way into Edinburgh to go help one of his buddies skin some stuff. So he's like, I'll swing up there and we'll take care of that. I'll help you drag your deer out. So he came up, helped me get the deer out, dispatched the coyote, and it was a nice little evening. And he's like, so are you going to come help me skin this? I was like, no, I got to get back to the house and podcast. So I pull back into the house, and it was like right at 6 o'clock when I got here.
Mm-hmm.
And no one's here. I was like, what the hell's going on? So I called Tom, and he's like, oh, yeah, no, we're
6:30.
We're way out on that. So, and that was when I found out that you were in Clymer. So I was like, well, Tom, come on over early and help me gut this deer. So, and he all he had to do was hold the light. So it was pretty nice.
Worked out well.
Yeah. So
Good deal.
that's when he got to see the nice little leg bar trick. And
No, that's neat. I'm definitely gonna have to use that.
Try it?
Yeah,
it's not a bad plan.
just to test the theory.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely test it out. So yeah, that's where she wraps up right there. Tom helped me get her gutted, and then we came back up and did a
Jeez,
podcast.
we can't even get a podcast done without somebody shooting a deer.
I
you
know, right?
It's probably because he's been listening to our tricks and tactics.
That's
Yeah.
probably it. Frank's definitely probably been listening to Tom and I.
Mm-hmm. I have for years now. It's finally paying off.
Nearly 2 years.
Yeah, nearly. We're only a couple weeks away from 2 straight years.
Yeah,
Yeah,
wow.
Christmas Eve
Yeah.
was our first podcast.
That's wild. Oh, speaking of that, memory
Well-
came up on my Snapchat. What,
It was Christmas Eve. That was the first recorded. Yeah.
yeah,
That was,
No,
who is White Cat?
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm saying we
did some test stuff.
did some test ones that I deleted
on accident It
earlier
was
up at the
supposed to
cabin
be-
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're well,
And we did one in the garage. That's what I was about to say. I had a memory come up on my Snapchat, like I think it was last week, of you and me just right after we bought all of our equipment, testing it out.
still trying to figure out what the hell we're doing.
Yeah,
I feel like I still am trying to figure out what the hell I'm doing, but every once in a while I get somebody message me or interested in starting a podcast, and they have some questions, and I don't know.
I couldn't tell you.
I have no idea.
I just start clicking buttons and stuff.
I'm like,
happens.
I mean, if you want, you can kind of watch how I do it, but I couldn't tell you.
That's good stuff.
Consistency, that's the big one.
Yeah, definitely.
We've been consistent for, 103 weeks now?
Well, 104.
104 now.
No, 'cause
Yeah, hell, we got
two.
more than 4.
Oh yeah,
had one
Tom's
double
right.
week.
We did have
We
a
had a
double
double
week
week.
when you and I were in Ohio.
Yeah.
103 weeks straight.
Yeah,
Haven't missed an episode.
fact.
We missed one Sunday, but we still did produce that week.
Yeah,
We had
that
a-
wasn't even our fault. That
It was Podbean did some weird thing. I can't really explain it, but it published the episode with no data. But like it said that the data was there. Like it was weird. So you guys still got your episode, just wasn't Sunday at 5.
Yeah, a couple days late, but it was there. So, yeah.
Appreciate the guys that listen, that shouted us out on Insta like, hey,
Where
what
that
the hell is-
podcast.
At like 5:05 in the morning, too. They're like, hey.
It was almost instant.
I got a message like pretty quick. I was like, what the oh geez. Like, all right.
Apparently, people pay attention.
Yeah. At 5 a.m. release, people like it.
Mm-hmm. Way in.
So, well, thank you, Frank, for finally.
Yeah. Well, it didn't take me as long as it took you last year.
That's true. I waited till the last evening of muzzleloader,
Yeah, you did. So I don't want to hear it.
which means there's
I think
still
I've
time.
been getting it done in bow season since we started the podcast.
Yeah.
It's because you've been listening to
Which-
the tips and tricks.
Yeah, I used to be that way, and then we started a podcast, and I stopped shooting bucks and archery. So maybe I ought to just peace out.
Yeah, Nick's done
It's like
on the
3
podcast.
years. It's like 3 years in a row. Nick shoots his buck and archery. Starts a podcast.
Can't shoot a buck to save his life.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
these things happen.
I think when I do shoot a buck, though, it's gonna be a stud.
Oh, absolute slob.
It's gonna be
Real joker.
big dude.
I'm still big, dude.
Almost a couple times this year, but I don't even want to talk about it. Season's not over. Could still happen.
It'll happen.
So.
I believe in you, Nick.
I guess we will wrap it up there.
Mm-hmm.
I hope you guys are still out there hunting. Took my old smoke pole for a walk today.
Yeah, we still got
Probably going to do it again
muzzleloader.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
Merry Christmas.
yeah, Merry Chrysler.
Merry Thermos.
Merry
However
St.
you say
Clemens.
it in your house.
there's a lot of different pronunciations for that holiday. So, so you guys enjoy your holiday, and make sure you guys are all still getting outside.